It's 35 minutes past 7 o'clock. Welcome to the Media Roundtable. This is the day that the Lord has made. We shall rejoice and be glad in it. What a day to be alive today. It's the 10th day of the month of Kawesa. Are you in class?
Of course.
2018. My name is Solomon Seranja. Welcome once again. Thanks for watching NBS Television. It's been a crazy week in terms of news. And the big story, of course, swinging in the opposition camp. A divided house that has never been fractured like this before. We are from for democratic change there, tearing itself in pieces. The recent reshuffle, we'll be discussing more about that. But also the Arua municipality by-election. We saw Paul Muiru saying he will support Kassiano Wadri. And of course, we also have Mugisha Mutu saying he's throwing his weight behind Kassiano Wadri. And all that, we're going to be discussing that tonight. Let me introduce my panelists. I should say that Simon Kagwanjala will be coming, and he will have to explain to us why he's late. And Joseph Sabiti, second time he was late, so I'll have to ask him to be really, to give an apology to all of us. But Dalton Kawesa in the philosophical corner. It's good to see you, sir.
Good to be back on the table.
It's been a while, man. I've not seen you. How is that lapel, the new brand?
I don't know what this mask is beeping.
It looks like he has joined the Democratic Party.
The DP people are always having those.
No, he's being NBS. He's wearing
exactly.
turquoise. Yeah.
Many to I say, he's a show host of the Morning Breeze show and news anchor. Good to see you, madam.
Good to see you too.
You look on point this morning. This man Sinkunda, a Ugandan and also a commentator, political commentator, expert, communications, expert, everything. You told me to introduce you as a Ugandan.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get the show started, gentlemen and lady. We started with what happened earlier on in the week. The reshuffles have been making headlines within the Front for Democratic Change. Power makes, you know, his new sort of cabinet in Parliament and replacing some people. One of the key people that was replaced was the leader of opposition, Winnie Kiza, replaced by Betty Aol. I was told not to say Aol. She's called Aol.
Ochan.
Yes.
Yes.
Ochan is an escape.
Yes.
All right, so I just wanted to get your feeling about the whole general reshuffle, but I'll start with Mildred Tuhaise, who has been having several conversations with different people this week. Mildred, what do you make of the reshuffle within the Front for Democratic Change?
Well, what do I make of the reshuffle? Well, first of all, I'm not FDC, so whatever happens in the FDC is determined by their own leadership. And the FDC constitution, I guess, vests the power of appointment of leaders in such capacity in the president of the party, who is Patrick Amoria Toboi right about this time. And therefore, on that, it's accepted in the constitution. Maybe the question with change is always why. Yeah, that is the question that needs to be answered every time there is a change. No matter how small it is, no matter how big it is, there will always be the question of why. And I think in most cases, the why bit is what is rarely explained. Because when the president, when he was even, that is the FTC president, of course, even when he was hosted on the Morning Breeze, he was a bit cagey on the reasons as to why he decided to make this reshuffle. He only gave up two, one being, I think, loyalty to the party, and the second being financial contribution to the party. But I don't think that would be well enough for you to position leadership in Parliament that is not only championing the aims and goals of FDC as a party, because it is leader of opposition. All the other opposition parties are encompassed in there. And in a way, you're also looking at the views of independent leanings to the opposition party. So I think why we are having all this discussion is because the why question wasn't extensively answered, and there seems to have not been as much dialogue. Because even the leader of opposition herself, all says, well, I first started hearing this as a rumor. Well, it started as a rumor. If you, Solomon, if you are going to appoint me, let me say you want to marry, let me bring it in that perspective. You just don't wake up a day and say, I'm walking someone down the aisle. You have to propose first and get the consent.
At you with this eye, like.
I don't know what he's planning to do, but you have to get the consent. But that there seems to have not been as much extensive discussion on the reshuffle with a lot of, you know, consultation from stakeholders. In as much as the president has the powers, there needed to be that semblance. It seems not to have been extended.
It looked like it was loyalty and financial contribution as the key basis, which of course has been questioned by different political commentators. And you cannot absolutely get out the Mutu Besige faction in this reshuffle, Dalton.
Yes, it's a writing on the wall about these factions that are in FDC. But maybe let me start it this way. Voltaire famously said that the Roman Catholic Empire was neither royal nor an empire. And in the same thing, I think I would say that while Voltaire was talking about the Holy Roman Empire, I beg your pardon, that he said was neither holy, nor Roman, nor an empire, I can perhaps say...
All right, let me just come in here, Dalton. Sorry about that. But let's look at the reshuffle, how it looks like. Betty Aolo Chan, leader of opposition. We have Semuju Ibrahim Nganda, who is the opposition chief whip. We have Muhindo Tony, deputy opposition chief whip. We have Francis Mwijuche as the commissioner there, and Ronald Kajinda, who is the Roland Kajinda, who is the Interparliamentary Union member there. Betty Nambozes, CPA representative, and of course we have Jack Wamai, who is the Pan-African Parliament, will be a representative, and William Nzugu also will be going to the Pan-African Parliament. That's the reshuffle, Dalton, you are still talking about.
Yes, I was saying before you reminded us of what is happening. I'm glad that the man that is deeply entrenched in FDC reporting as finally showed case. But I said...
but what is your general take on the reshuffle?
The general take is that, you see, first of all, everyone has to assemble a team that they believe can deliver.
Yeah.
That is the nature of politics and how it works. The way Donald Trump assembled his people, the way the public cried for when President Seven appointed people like Evelyn Anite in investment, because that's what they believe in. But when it comes, that is the first layer. But the second layer, which is very important, is that as a leader, and you're called Forum for Democratic Change, you must therefore exhibit leadership that galvanizes every support. That is an opportunity to me that was lost. Because at the end of the day, what perception they tell us is next to reality. The moment you give people out there this perception that you are actually, it's a purge, then you have a problem. So while on the first layer, the president could be right on Morning Breeze that I'm assembling people that I believe are loyal to me.
He actually said to the party, not to himself.
To the party. But I mean, he misses the point there, but I'm not going to the details. But you look at the people that have been in this struggle. Maybe the struggle has taken too long, that the cracks are big and need someone to address these cracks. This is what I saw in the what? In the shuffle.
Yeah.
That the president should have looked at these cracks. FDC has been in the struggle for more than 12 years, is it? I want to think after a reform agenda, more than 12 years. So, and along the way, they thought they would get victory sooner than later. It comes that they are still, the conversation today, we see President Seven is still around forever. So you would expect this kind of cracks, but at another layer, it was important for Patrick to see how he brings these people to fold instead of complaining that actually they invite them for neck and they don't appear.
All right.
Happen that way.
All right. I think this must. I'll comment on Kawesa's arguments there later. But this was. What is your general analysis and thoughts on the reshuffle within for democratic change?
You know, I'll pick from where Dalton was, because I think Amriat, the president of Forum for Democratic Change, wanted to stamp his own authority, wanted to make sure that people feel and know.
I am the man.
I am the one who is in charge of this party. Yep. So anything that you do, even if he didn't believe in the changes that he was making, He had to make it for purposes, for symbolic purposes, for him to be able to be counted and say he is in charge. Because the general perception that we have always held as the public is that actually he is not the one who is in charge. That Kizza Besigye is the one who is in charge, and for him is just a front.
Yeah.
And therefore the opposition, and for him to have been elected the FDC president was simply to smitten the question of General Muntu as being the former president of the of FDC. So up to now, for him to, even when you see him speaking, like Mildred was saying, he is a little bit cagey. He doesn't even understand the reasons as to why he made the changes at the time that he made the changes. But the changes were inevitable for him to show authority. And you can see the cracks immediately happened after he made the changes, because everybody didn't believe, they don't think that he's the person who's in charge. So I do believe that in a way, Amriat is trying to create a sense that I am the president of this party, and anything I do, whether I do. The only thing that made me get shocked, and I can see my brother is coming in too late. You should first apologize.
Apologies. Yes, this was.
Yes. So the only thing that happened to me, which was a shocker, and the public was wondering and saying, now, when they made the changes, Winnie Kizza said she can't leave. Now we are saying, so even NRM, when they have their own, they staying in power for long, is...
But you see, this was the New Vision published detailed...
It was Monitor.
It was the Daily Monitor, beg your pardon. They published a whole make good or an apology that she actually didn't say that. But yes, you are still making your arguments.
Yeah, I'm saying that if the opposition can say they want to stay in power longer than is supposed to be their time, you sometimes sit and say, now, who between them and NRM should be speaking and saying that they are more democratic than the others? So to that extent, it was a bit of a problem, this reshuffle, in a way.
All right, yeah, I mean, we're going to be again debating your views, but Simon Kagwanjala, welcome.
Apologies first.
All right, the apologies accepted, and also Joseph Sabiti. Once again.
That is habitual now.
See who's talking.
All right. Joseph says you can't get rid of the demon and the devil. But Simon, once again, thanks for joining us. But you interviewed Patrick Amuriat this week. What is the sense? What did you pick out from your interview with him?
A couple of things. There are simmering tensions within the party. Two, Amuriat is getting a firm grip onto the party.
Really?
Maybe, yes, he's getting firmer over time. We've interviewed Amuriat severally. From the initial stages, he had this character of a student who was learning. Today you can tell he's on the road, he's driving, he's in charge.
So you feel that Patrick is now in charge of the
party, yes.
I don't know if that statement stands, but let me challenge it a little bit, because when you see people, about 23 strongholds, all saying this is more dividing the party, and you're saying you're in charge of the party.
Let me tell you something. I've studied FDC since its inception. It's never been devoid of conflict. You remember the Betty Kamya days. From the reform agenda, actually, there is always an issue, but I just love the way they resolve their internal conflicts. Trust me, after a couple of months, this story will be gone. What magic they apply, I don't know. But again, what is remarkable, what is equally remarkable is what is coming from both sides. They tend to keep away from the real story. There must be something in-depth. They are simply looking at this from the top. There is something in-depth brewing. Yet actually, all of them are hesitant because they know it's going to break their party. I think that is a sign of love for the party. They've put the party first. What we should be analyzing now...
You also picked that from the interview.
Yes.
Yeah.
From the interviews I've held with different people. Yesterday, I hosted Centenary with Francis Mwijuche. You could tell they were keeping away from the real story. It takes someone to dig deeper. We need to dig deeper as journalists into what could have caused this. It was a bit premature. The sacking was premature. or should I call it the drop?
Change.
The change. Call it anything. The reshuffle,
Oh, the reshuffle.
was prematurely done.
I don't know if
Much as it was looming already, but it was prematurely
but
done.
I don't
He's
know
in
if Joseph
charge.
will. I don't know if Joseph will agree with you, but let's speak his mind. Joe, what is your general thoughts on the reshuffle by POA?
At the surface, let's look at the transition from the single-party system to multi-partyism from 2006, the official formation of the Forum for Democratic Change. Professor Maurice Ogenga Latigo was leader of opposition for 5 solid years. Then Najana Kumbi felt that there was another power center being created in the name of parliament. The loyalists to Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye sat back then, because he was the party president, and said powers of appointment should be transferred to the party president. And henceforth, Dr. Besigye appointed the first leader of opposition. He wanted the Honorable Cecilia Ogwal because she was a Mugole in the party. She was rejected. The NEC team came up with Nathan Nandala Mafabi. In that race was Regan Okumu, was Abdu Katuntu, was Ali Salaso. It was very, very fierce. The battle for the leader of opposition's slot was extremely fierce, if you remember. The FDC moved on. The General Muntu Nandala conflict was one of the most dirty. They went bare knuckle.
Yeah.
You remember Robaramira Roranga went ahead and said Muntu is a mole. He's not even Ugandan, right? Years later, the one who was accusing the other of a mole is in the yellow bus.
It's the one who's a mole.
It turns out he's the mole. The FDC moved on, right? General Muntu came in. He gave Nandala a chance to complete the 2.5 years, replaced him with one of his close allies, Philip Wafula Ogutu, who also served 2.5 years until he lost Bukoli Central. And General Muntu again appointed the Honorable Winnie Kiza. So what am I saying? Tradition has been that the leadership of the opposition in parliament serves on average 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Let's look at the Muntu Amuriat campaign. There were extremely 2 radical sides. 2 sides that believed in completely different approaches to running the party's affairs. When the elections were done, General Muntu called for remember we prepared tags. We were ready for a breaking story. Then we went to Africana. When we came back, Muntu was just being Muntu. He did what is common with my elder, Dr. Ruakana Rugunda. You want him to speak, he will come and say, yeah, General Kale will be dealt with according to the military laws. He will tell you General Kale is a senior military officer. We all know that.
No breaking news.
Nothing. So General Muntu came and spoke at length and said nothing. Right? So here we are in this complex situation where Engineer Patrick Amuriat has the powers to fire.
And
He has fired. Now we are debating whether, he did it out of a purge, or where is the purgeometer? Where are we going to draw the line between a legitimate need to assemble a team you believe in and a purge? 2, the only places where I fault him in as a former legislator, as somebody who was in parliament, is when he comes on TV and says the Abdu Katuntu-led committee did not do well in writing reports. I covered Kosase under Engineer Patrick Amuriat. Let him come out and tell us what he did. You cannot castigate Abdu when you were probably worse than Abdu in the same position. At least from May 2016, when Abdu was appointed, there are 3 committee reports. Now, the duty of allocating those reports to the order paper is that of the Speaker and the Business Committee. Otherwise, does Amuriat have the powers to fire Abdu? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did he fire him? Yes. Should he go? Absolutely. Should he whine? I don't know what he should whine about. Then thirdly, there is this squad of 23 in the FDC. They need to decide whether they have the political balls to do the things that they have been saying they will do. There's this whole debate within the FDC that 1 year into elections, we are going to cross the floor because the law allows us without losing our seats. Then we will announce a third force. Then we will become the majority, the official opposition. Then FDC will become the minority. Then we will form the shadow leadership in parliament. Let them decide. You cannot be both in FDC and outside. And I, as a person who believes in institutional building and framework, I want these guys to be decisive. Where I come from in the village, you know, they have previously accused Poa of being a villager. It's something we're very proud of. When you call me a villager, I can even give you a hug. In the village, we don't have political watermelons. If I can conclude this, we don't have political watermelons. The Rugunda, Kalonzo Musyoka type, who are neither here or nowhere. What General Muntu is doing now, he's not out, he's not fully in. Then he's in Arua with an independent candidate, then he's in Bujiri with an FDC candidate. You decide, and I think the FDC is at that defining moment. So.
All right, well, interesting thoughts, you know, the whole build-up, the historical perspective to it.
If I can just remind you, in just 1 minute, remember, before Power came in, they were accused of Katonga having two factions, the Katonga faction and the Najana Nkumbi.
Yeah.
Today we have Najana Nkumbi and Forest Cottage.
Simon Kabwanja. But again, okay, let me come back this side. But Simon, there's something you didn't talk about, because I remember I watched your interview with Poa, and he highlighted the reasons why he made he made the reshuffle: loyalty, financial contribution.
Yes.
There were three.
It was just two. He was catchy about the others.
Yeah, but you'd see that there was this call to the loyalty of the party,
Yes.
and it felt like the people we had put in charge were going to be loyal to the party, whatever comes.
Yes, because remember, the 23, or that clique that defies rather Power, no longer steps at Najana Nkumbi. They don't attend meetings, they don't submit reports, they don't remit money. They don't. Centenary was here. No, listen to me. Listen to me. Centenary was here yesterday and said, we. It was collective.
Centenary said himself.
We.
No,
he
no,
said
he said
himself. He
himself.
doesn't remit money.
No,
He
listen.
said himself. He didn't
Okay.
say. He
His
didn't say we.
accusations, by the way, Power's accusations were spot on. Because it takes some bit of discipline and also compliance to the rules. The party would expect some money from these MPs. They don't remit. They
No,
belong
they
to.
don't.
No.
I'm not saying. I'm not saying all of them. I'm not saying all of them.
Then use
But
some.
if you did a roll call today of the Muntu
Because
force and how many of those MPs pay their money, their dues on time.
Do you
Njala,
have
Njala,
evidence?
you don't have
Because
facts.
you can
You
only,
don't have
you can
facts.
only,
I do.
You don't have
I
facts.
do.
No.
I do. And I enjoy the privilege of keeping matters to myself.
all right,
No.
all right, no,
Let
you
me
can't
just
go
give
with that.
information.
But
No,
listen,
no,
no.
This is the
This is a
problem.
discussion.
You're not
But
supposed to just
you
mention
can't
something and
now-
run away
because you
with
see,
it.
you have to back
Now,
this with
let me
evidence.
provoke you. Let me provoke your journalistic mind. Go and investigate how many MPs are paying.
You're also a
to the
journalist.
FDC.
Boss, you first give us your
All right.
statistics. I want to
Of
give
course.
him information that one of the things I have been, I have spent considerable amount of time at Najana Nkumbi, and one of the things I've been trying to verify is this whole discussion about money.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the person they're mentioning that is rallying MPs, it is true there was a discussion in Parliament about stopping to remit money, but there was a discussion.
Just a discussion.
But the Treasurer General's report, the Honorable Geoffrey Ekanya, is on your speed dial.
Go check
No,
the
the-
records.
I am
no,
telling
no,
you.
no, 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 no.
All right,
Yes,
so
sir.
I
What's
challenge
Njala?
you. I challenge you to go check the
Njala
records.
Let me
reminds
say
me.
Go
this.
check how many MPs.
Njala,
I
I
can
know
give-
information.
I'm going to
Okay.
give you information and you're just shouting.
Okay.
The Treasurer General's report
Okay.
shows that a considerable amount of MPs actually contribute.
Okay.
The defaulters are actually, some of them
Some-
are on the other side. No, on the
You're
other side.
contradicting yourself. Listen to
But
me.
he
Okay.
said
All right,
okay,
let's
Listen to me.
Okay, order here.
You know,
Simon, let me just come in here.
Solomon,
The
I wanted
fact
to
that
just
you-
to say this.
there's a host and a guest.
No. You see, the problem with
Okay,
you is
Joseph.
you,
Okay,
you're-
let's
you're-
listen to each other.
You're
Joseph.
deficient in facts. Your excess in
And you're
shouting.
sufficient in lies.
I want to give you facts. I want to give you
All right,
facts.
let's listen to each other. Yes.
I don't do my journalism here. I spent in the last in the run to the reshuffle, I spent about 25 hours at Najana Nkumbi. And I had one discussion with technical people. I spoke to the Treasurer General, who was on frontline yesterday of the party. His books are up to date with Winnie Kiza, who is being accused of not remitting money. Actually, his concern is of a senior legislator, someone from the East. The Treasurer's book, someone from the East, a very absolute poor loyalist, who doesn't remit
Big
money.
lie.
Who doesn't remit money?
Big lie.
There's a poor loyalist from the East who doesn't remit money. Regan Okumu.
Who is that?
Regan Okumu. Regan Okumu.
Who is that?
Hey, also set
Who is that?
because
State the MP.
The Honorable Jack Wamanga Wamai, a poor loyalist. The Treasurer's books have put dots on him. When the discussion came in Parliament about stopping to remit money, the Honorable Regan Okumu of Aswa County said, I quote, "We may have our differences with the leadership of the FDC, but we belong to the FDC. Let us continue supporting our party."
A quick one. Has there been any moment where MPs of the FDC, a certain section of the MPs of the FDC, have questioned why they still need to remit money, yet they had cleared the loan, the outstanding loan on the building?
But as quoted Regan
on
Okumu.
the FDC headquarters. No, listen, listen.
Jala, what are you
Has
saying?
there been?
Are
Has there been?
you saying?
No,
Are you
no.
saying that?
Solomon, was
Because
Jala listening?
okay, guys, let's
No,
come,
no,
let's
not
come
a
back
single
here.
MP. Not a single MP.
Give me the list.
Collectively.
Give me the list of MPs who don't pay up.
Collectively, the Forest Cottage clique, the Forest Cottage clique has
Constituent.
questioned severally
In
why
Jala-
they
Jala-
Have they
Jala-
stopped
money.
paying?
Yes.
No.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Jala
Okay,
does-
let me
You
cross
said
over
Jala is
here.
deficient on what?
In noise.
And insufficient.
Very deficient. Very deficient.
Let's come back here. Let's come back here, because thank you very much for the point of information and for the arguments from this side. Let me come back here to some perspective from Dalton Kawesa. Dalton, the issues, of course, from this side were, you know, the loyalty to the party and the decision that was made by POA on this issue was barely on loyalty. Let's start one by one, at least for the top positions. Winnie Kiza being replaced by Betty Awol. In POA's arguments, Betty Awol Ochan, I think for better, is a loyal person to the party, and then that means Kiza was dropped, and she is actually hardworking, according to POA.
That
Let's analyze the first top position of the leader of opposition.
that Achan is hardworking.
Ochan.
Ochan
Ochan.
rather. Ochan, I was avoiding the other Awal. That will get me. So all is hardworking. It's a fact. I've seen the lady of my interfaces with Parliament, the passion, the representation. If you check on the Hansard, she will be there. She has debated passionately. At one point, I saw her lose her cool. I don't know which bill we were debating that time. Lose her cool, engage the speaker. Actually, she was suspended.
Yeah.
You remember? To a point that she was suspended. Other people that claim to be so much FDC have not been seen in the struggle. We cannot
Dalton,
say.
would you want to define this struggle? Because I hear it on the street, struggle.
Yes, you see, I'm defining it from the lenses of Kano Kiza Besigye and the whole movement in a forum for democratic change. For the struggle, they claim and define is to oust President Museveni. That is their struggle.
Actually, their struggle is to oust the dictatorship.
Exactly.
That's the tagline they use.
So in the struggle, not that I, from a journalist point of view, but I'm giving it the noun they have called it. So, in terms of loyalty, are we loyal to first? My question would be, are they supposed to be loyal to individuals or to the party in terms of assessment? Each has served a different president. Ochan herself has been also loyal to the leadership in Parliament. You give it to them. You get it. So for me, actually comparing these two before this woman occupies her office is rather unfair, very unfair. We've not given her chance to see what she can do while in chair. I can tell you Winnie Kiza had unfettered support from these stakeholders around her, the same Jews, name it, in order to ensure that she runs her office well. She also had what I would call the goodwill. What remains to be seen, because you cannot judge this woman before she even takes, she's a week old in her office. She has participated in legislation. People should go on the Hansard. She has played her role. When they had disagreement, she went on the floor. There are people who only speak in parliament when they are doing a roll call. That's the only time they will speak in parliament.
Introductory speech.
Exactly. You get it? So it would be, in terms of right, would be unfair. But fundamentally for me, in all this, as you break it down, FDC needs to deal with 3 people. In my view. Squarely.
Yes.
We'll come to that
Okay.
later on. Let me bring in Mildred Rice. Mildred, you interviewed Ochan Aol, Betty. What did you pick from her? Do you feel she's the right candidate to lead the gang of the opposition to better legislation and finally to State House?
I love the choice of your words, because when you say right candidate and then say lead the gang, sincerely what we have in parliament may it seem like so, looking at the behavior of some of these members of parliament. Reading from Aol herself speaking to me, one, like Dalton said, let's give her a benefit of doubt. We haven't even determined how she can be able to work. She hasn't even gone in office, and people started debating. Most people almost wanted to make the world think this is the first time in parliament. I mean, she's been in parliament since 2006. She has had her highs, she's had her lows, right? And every other person always has that. Aol looks to be a person who is ready to serve. Looking and gauging from my speech with her, she is ready to serve. And she is ready to dialogue and learn, because all of us at every point in life, we get to learn. This is not a position that is cast in stone that you need an angel from heaven. I mean, even at the appointment of Winnie Kiza, there was a bit of discussion. Is she the right person to replace? I mean, is she going to perform her duties? But time taught her, and the kind of relationship with other members of parliament taught her to become the leader of opposition that right now she is. So I think we need to give Aol a chance to be able to serve. And when you talk about loyalty, loyalty per se at this time had to be determined by the president of the party. And like Joseph gave you the entire preamble of how this came for the president to be able to determine who becomes the leader of opposition in the wisdom of Amoriat. He thinks, and as a leader, of course, like everyone was saying, he needs to stamp his foot. As a leader, you need to work with a team that can be able to sit down with you, believe in your ideas, and listen. My only question, though, or my only discussion on the entire FDC will always be, what's the breadth of ideology in the FDC? Aside from the fact that we are in opposition, we need to get the government out of power. If you look at all the discussions and the splits we've had in the opposition, is basically on, I think it's a non-understanding of ideology. When Muntu came in, he said, let's build structures. Amoriat comes in and says, no, it has to be defiance. I think let FDC enjoy its own discussion of defiance, because that's what's being depicted here.
Absolutely, and this is where I wanted to bring in Dismas. Aol says she's ready to take defiance to parliament. Similarly, when Simon Kagwanjala was interviewing Patrick Amoriat, he says, we are taking defiance to parliament. We all know defiance is synonymous with Dr. Kizza Besigye, and therefore you sort of see the Besigye hand, the invisible hand, as
I'm not seeing it. Where is it?
It's an ideology that was
it's
adopted.
an ideology, but you see it's an invisible hand of
Is it
Dr. Kizza
ideology or
Besigye.
methodology?
But let me bring in this here. Looking at a call and how the position
Aol,
of the
Aol, Aol.
Aol.
You can say American online.
Jesus Christ. Ochan, looking at the position of leader of opposition and what it really means to stand in that chair and sort of challenge the other side, you know, do you feel that she's the right candidate to take up that position?
I have not, like Dalton said, or even Mildred, followed her that closely. I'm actually just learning about her now. I just saw her the other day speaking on television. I had never heard her speak, and I do believe that if you are to compare tomatoes and onions, I do believe that I had understood Winnie a little bit more than I understand her. But like Mildred says, it takes time for some person to be able to build their own self, have their own personal esteem, be able to express themselves, manage the structures of FDC, the opposition in parliament. The best thing that happens for the opposition in Uganda happens if you are defiant. The moment you are compromising and having discussions that are not confrontational, it seems that you have lost it. That's the perceptions that we have had over a period of time. The only time that Besigye nearly lost an election was the time when he became reconciliatory in his campaign. The rest of the times when he is defiant, he's shouting, he's abusing, he's the man. So it is the juxtaposition between an extreme person who is very defiant, because they are a section of the population of the voters in Uganda who would align themselves to an individual who is defiant, who wants to oppose authority, who wants Museveni to leave like this minute, who will insult him and make sure that his NRM party is told it's the worst party that has ever existed on the planet called Uganda. So to that extent, I don't know her stance. If her stance is going to pick on what the President Amriat has instructed her to do, and she becomes defiant, most probably she's going to buy into the population. If she becomes reconciliatory and takes the line of Mugisha Muntu, which most probably she will not, and defiance is always also defined by what Kizza Besigye has always espoused. So in that way, I do believe that we should give her a benefit of doubt sometime so that we can know which parameters she's taking in order for us to make a judgment call about her.
Well, this was good submission, but let me bring in Joseph here. This was just saw Betty first time on TV, and clearly there are very many people out there who hadn't seen Betty before on the floor of Parliament submitting. You've been covering Parliament for quite a while. Give us some sort of picture of Betty on the floor and whether she can really lead this team of the opposition in proper legislation.
I think context is key here. Let's look at the two recent appointments. The Honorable Winnie Kizza came from the Pro-Muntu group, which is the majority in Parliament. Actually, Engineer Patrick Amriat had only about 7-8 MPs supporting him in the race this time. But in the previous election, the bulk of the FDC MPs were actually for General Muntu. So the Honorable Winnie Kizza came with the goodwill of the bulk of the FDC membership in Parliament. And it is different for Betty Aol, because she has to start from bringing 23 people into the fold. So the biggest challenge she has is actually to get these people among whom there's a discussion to break away from the party, among whom there are people who have absconded from their duties to the party. I was disagreeing with Simon on remittance of funds, not because there are no MPs who don't remit funds, but it is historical in the FDC. With or without Amriat, over the years there have been MPs who have been too stingy, extremely stingy, to contribute to their party. They feel very entitled to be appointed, they feel very entitled to be supported, but when it comes to getting money to support this party, they are as stingy as, okay, who is the most stingy Ugandan? I don't know.
No.
Okay, they are as stingy.
I need your protection,
They are as stingy as Kagwanjala. Since I respect this man, he might know something. Yeah, so that's what she's going to deal with. First of all, she's going to deal with the entitled group, the ones who feel they are the ones who should be leader of opposition. They are the ones who know. They are the ones who are entitled to being appointed. They are the ones who, when you throw out, it is a criminal activity. Now, working with that group can be difficult. She's already finding difficulties assembling a shadow cabinet. The Democratic Party wing of Parliament appears to be allying with
the Muntu,
with the bigger team, right? Then two, I spoke to a number. By the way, over time, you will notice the biggest opposition in Parliament came from within the NRM ranks. There are NRM MPs who were consistently on the side of Winnie Kizza as she battled the government side. I can name them. James Achidri Maracha has never agreed with government. John Baptist Nambeshe, nothing. Patrick Nsamba, nothing. Mbwate Kamwa, nothing. Theodore Sechikubo, nothing. Barnabas Tinkasimire, always defiant. There's a concern among this group, if you speak to them, that Winnie was our leader. We believed in her. We believed she was the general leading the front in parliament. This group is now saying, some of them, by the way, were contemplating joining the FDC. Now they are saying,
Some things are not adding up.
yeah. And so Betty all starts her tenure on a very, 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 very tough note. There even is a discussion of a breakaway faction. There's a plan. I don't know if they have the political guts. I keep saying, I dare them, that let the 23 MPs walk away from the FDC and form another party under General Muntu, and FDC becomes a minority and gives it an opportunity for a fresh start. So I really want to say that we are going to have to sit and watch what happens in Parliament.
Before I get to Simon Kagwanjala, Joseph, when you're leading a battalion, yeah, you have a general, but also you have a potential leader, just in case anything happens or this general is killed. Somehow nature calls that this guy has been exhibiting, you know, the general and the might, and eventually he will take over the, you know, the group, and he will lead the force. Betty was, I mean, when you look at her past, like she's sort of been in, she's not like been so much on the front line. And that is something that has been raised by different people.
Again, let's give it context.
People just don't.
Let's give it context. Did Winnie Kiza become member of parliament when she became leader of opposition? No. Okay, let me just ask on this table.
She was
what did you know about Winnie Kiza, the chairperson of the local government accounts committee?
She's the only female MP whose husband also sat in the same parliament.
I'm not talking about husband issues.
That's what I knew about her. That's what I knew about her.
I am saying, Solomon, what do you know about Winnie Kiza, the chairperson of the local government accounts committee?
She was little known, though.
What do you know about Winnie Kiza, the chief opposition whip?
Of course, she's come out as a strong
the whip
woman.
The whip.
Chief whip, no.
So, why is everyone quick to jump on Betty all, strangle her, and do? Here's what I'm saying. Context is key. Time is key. The office of the leader of opposition, if I can tell you, is a directorate in parliament. It comes with financial muscles. It comes with technical staff. Budgets. It comes with a budget. It comes with sharpshooters. And so
escorts.
A truck full of sharpshooters.
They will shape her.
So in the next couple of days, it comes with protocol procedures and demands.
Okay.
It comes with membership to the Parliamentary Commission and exposure and a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so I believe, even if you picked my good friend, the Honorable Katol Bwama, and gave him these structures, he will be quite different from the person he is right now. Now,
it's a matter of time.
yeah. So people, but again, I think a lot of us were saying, okay, are all more diplomatic and everything, but she has a very strong opposition whip, and the commander in Ibrahim Semujunganda, who worked very closely with Winnie Kiza. You get it? The only challenge they have, and Winnie enjoyed this, Nandala didn't have it, WAF struggled with it, galvanizing the entire opposition in parliament as a united front.
All right, when we return from the break, we'll be discussing more about the divisions within the Front for Democratic Change, but also the Arua municipality by-election. What does it mean for the party? That and more after the break. Stay with us. All right, so it's about 22 minutes past 8 o'clock. You're watching the Media Roundtable here on NBS Television. My name is Solomon Serwanja, and we're continuing to throw some light and perspective on stories that made headlines. And the Arua municipality by-elections are up. NRM is being fronted by Nisura Tuperu, and of course we have Bruce Musene for the Front for Democratic for the Front for Democratic Change, and Cassiano Wadri, who is an independent contestant for this race. Now, he was also member of parliament for Terego County. But I think the bigger story to this is the revelation this week. We have key members within the Front for Democratic Change.
Leaders.
Okay, leaders.
Yes.
They're also members.
They're also members, also. Including, of course, Mugisha Muntu, who publicly said he's throwing his weight on Cassiano Wadri, and also is campaigning for him. We have Paul Mwiru, deputy spokesperson for the Front for Democratic Change, throwing his weight on Kassian Wadri. Yesterday, the Democratic Party and JEMA members also throwing their weights on Kassian Wadri. Again, another revelation of a divided house. And now there looks like the formation of the People Power team taking center stage in the multi-party politics of this country. I'll start with you, Simon Kagwanjala. Your general thoughts on this issue.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted him to be careful this time because he has never had the right prediction.
No. I'm not predicting the Arua by the Arua election.
You are
Even Trump, even Trump, and the
I'm
Brexit.
not making any prediction this time.
After
And now I
Brexit.
wish I had commented about all as well, but maybe that opportunity passed.
Okay.
Did it pass?
Next time.
Next time.
Yes.
Well, it could perhaps be one of her challenges. It's a moment for her to shine.
No.
But again,
They asked you not to
Next
comment.
Arua municipality election is a very complex issue. I see a hangover spilling again into Arua. You know, the dynamics on the face of it, you would say there is a force now to contend with. That there is a new wave that should be watched seriously. But what is informing this wave is something that we should also be studying. Is it intrigue? Is it a show off? Is it at the back of this, is there a plot perhaps to weaken the current opposition in its current state? Or perhaps the candidates that the parties are fronting are not worthy. We also need to investigate this. Besides, why is FDC failing or not picking lessons from the Bujiri, I cannot call it a blunder, from the Bujiri loss? They have a legitimate right to present a candidate. Muntu has been traversing the country under the guise of consultations. Can we say that now the consultations have ended? He's going into the trenches. He's starting the real political journey. Where is it starting and ending? We need to read into this. But
What is
again,
your reading?
my reading
Your
is,
duty is to tell us your reading.
my reading is the bitter row that has existed for quite some time, the bitter feud in the political circles is now playing out in the Arua elections, like it played out in the Bujiri elections, like it will play out again in other areas, several other areas. The opposition is getting weaker by the day.
All right, let me bring in Joseph
Quite wrong,
again.
in my opinion.
We'll come back to you this side. But the reason why I think I'm bringing in Joseph here, and please don't get me wrong, members
You
of
don't
this
owe them
bench,
any explanation.
but I know
You are in charge.
Yes.
Don't be
Joseph,
like
you covered a
Amriat.
story in the build-up of this election. Kassian Wadri, I think a month back, when he came out to clearly say that the FDC has been very unfair with him. And so he didn't feel like he had, like, you know, that support. And this time around, he comes on an independent ticket. You know, doesn't this worry you? You who is an advocate of institution building and, you know, political party politics. Where does this leave the whole FDC as a whole?
First, I should say I'm not worried about these things because Uganda's two major political parties, and I have told you before, I fundamentally agree with the Bush mentality, and two of our parties have been built on the Bush mentality, surrounded by Bushmen, the NRM and the FDC. So many times you will see this Bush mentality playing out, even among those who didn't go to the Bush. So I'm not worried about events in the FDC. I'm not worried about events in the NRM. In any case, my idea of how the politics of this country should be run is extremely different. I'm actually asking myself, if NRM can give us 50 John Baptist Nambeshes, do we still need the opposition? That's the question I've been asking myself. Because you have people who are in opposition, and then they are the connections. They are apparently in opposition, but they are the connections to State House, that you can meet the president faster through them than through Molika Mukama. So this is a conversation we need to have. But two, I think the Arua situation is very complex. First of all, it's a tale of crossovers. Nusra was in Yumbe. She lost in Yumbe, went to Iyala, went to Koboko, now is in Arua. Wadri was in Terego for 15 years. He lost in Terego, now he's in Arua. The FDC has a flag bearer who competed with the Honorable Ibrahim Abiriga. May his soul not rest until his killers are found. And lost. and the party fronted him for that particular seat, the municipality, right? Wadri Kassiano is a bull in the politics of West Nile. He's a political bigweight. So he feels and is empowered by President Museveni, who admits in public in Arua that, you see, it took me 15 years to remove this chap. I suffered, I failed to eat, I failed to do everything. That sparked off the Kassiano wave in Arua. And it got into people's minds that, hey, look, looks like this is the guy the big man fears. So that worked in his favor. But let's get back to the internal dynamics. What do the rules of engagement in the FDC say? Who is being honest? Who is lying? And I think it's clear. I don't even need to state it. Who made the rules at Najanankumbi? I don't think it was Bruce. He was a small boy in the university when those rules were being made. The people who made the rules of the game are there. So we don't even need to be discussing what implications it has on institutional building, because then we can see what people say and what they believe in. It's all playing out there. But again, what is in the strategic interest of a party? Playing by the rules or victory? That's, I think, the complex situation we have here. So if FDC can pull it off with Musema, well and good. If Kassiano beats them, it's 2-0. They were beaten in Bujiri. Then the score will be 2-0. They were beaten in all the municipalities. Never mind the fact that I believe some of them had issues. Elections were stolen in some of them. But again, the end justifies the means. FDC got 0 in the municipalities. FDC missed Bujiri.
They got a mayor in Bujiri.
Mayors don't sit in parliament.
Lower. Okay, fine.
Yeah. So I am saying it's actually a test. And this time, since Chagulanyi decided to sit in Kampala and do other things and do other engagements, actually it's now a direct head-on between the Dr. Besigye camp, leading the Musema campaign, and General Muntu, who is testing the waters to see if he can actually, launch his own career. So let's put the weighing scale and we see who.
All right.
Will be who
and I think you set a very strong foundation for my next question to Mildred to Haise. The Honorable, I don't know, okay, General Mugisha Muntu was the leader of the Forum for Democratic Change, and he clearly knows the rules of the game and rules of engagement. And this time, decides to throw his weight on an independent candidate.
Even in Bujiri, he just didn't come out open.
What do you read into this?
What do I read? It is personal decision, number one. In this regard, the reason I asked
But you
earlier
belong to a
on,
political party,
yes,
and you're a former
totally.
president.
What's it? When the rebel MPs disagreed with the NRM, didn't they belong there? It is conviction, I think, for me. And that is why Joseph brought in the aspect of victory vis-a-vis, rules of engagement. For a party, you might get a candidate who necessarily is not in your party, like we did see in many cases. When we went to Chadondo East, FDC, we did see the bit of support that was given to the FDC candidate and another person. We saw what came out of that. And in many other areas where opposition has said, well, this may not be our party candidate, but let's get together and have our cause fronted. The difference in ideology, not even difference in ideology, I think the lack of ideology, even in the NRM, I try to look for the NRM ideology, and I'm struggling here and there to find it. What FDC's former president now is doing and saying is, I don't believe in the candidate the party has fronted if we are going to deal with issues of victory. Because remember, in all these elections, what has come out squarely and clearly is, let us have NRM out and get either an opposition candidate or get someone else, but who does not subscribe to the NRM. Because the problem we have in Parliament right now is this ego of numbers. And the opposition is trying in as much as possible to get a person who can be able to sit and confront the ideals, confront the issues that are brought in Parliament. Not the likes that President Museveni loves, who will sit and wake up to vote. That's what the opposition is trying. Now, if Muntu sees that, well, Musema is not the right candidate here who is going to be able to push that, or we may not get victory through him, he decides to rally behind the other. It's personal decision. You're not going to force him.
And this is where I get disturbed, because personal decision versus multi-party
Institutional
politics.
framework, yes.
Dalton, where is the future of multi-party politics here? Because when you have a president of a full Uganda's biggest opposition political party, knowing the rules of engagement and deciding to do otherwise according to the rules.
Well, you have really framed Mugisha Muntu in that. But maybe before I answer that, I would like to remind you, if you remember in Chadondo election,
Yes.
when the party, one of the biggest opposition figures was asked, of your party leadership and Chagulanyi, who do you go for? What was the answer?
You say the name. You say
Oyo
the name.
Neo
Kano Kiza basi just say Oyo. Say it, sub it again. It's
no wafe. Neo no wafe.
Wafi.
When you say, when you say
So, why did I ask that? Is that let us speak. Solomon, don't overframe this gentleman, because the contradiction have been there. But the key question you've asked, the future of multi-party politics. And this is what I think. And I expected actually Njala to break it down when he started that the reading, he normally takes us into that. Reading and stops
Between
us
the
there.
lines.
He never concludes for us. This is it.
No, you
if you
You have the time.
if away from the lighter from Njala, if you've monitored the politics of FDC and the political processes of Mugisha Muntu, and also seen the numbers that we have in Parliament of FDC, of independents, of NRM, it points, in my humble submission, to one thing, that a person like Mugisha Muntu is not concerned even about the presidents of this country. He's more concerned with building numbers. What Sabit was asking, that let them have the political balls to say that they are crossing. They may not cross now. But what is the game plan in my reading? The game plan for these people is to make sure they accumulate more independent leaning. Yeah. And therefore, and this is not in this parliament,
Yes.
in the coming
long-term
parliament.
plan, yes.
That is what the Mugisha Muntu clique, in my reading, is doing. That make every possibility that you have in your hands to ensure that FDC loses ground and you have opposition but independent. Those independents, you'll be able to make an alliance in parliament. And what will happen? They will establish a shadow cabinet.
Yes.
Those are the rules of engagement. And that comes with budget. So the game plan for Mugisha Muntu, and if this is not reading this, then they rather go back and comb the books and understand political processes. Because at the end of the day for these people, for them, Mugisha Muntu's plan could be 10 or 15 years from now. And by the time, let's say, President Museveni says, I'm tired of this, or God forbid something happens, people will look around and say, who is our next alternative? Even the NRM would say, Muntu can do, because we have the numbers in parliament.
That's good analysis,
Yes.
Kawesa.
So these people are looking at just Arua. They are looking at the bread now, forgetting that this man is a chess player. He is in chess, those that have had the benefit of knowing how to play chess. We calculate 7 moves ahead of the current move. And to me, that is the outlook for the Mugisha Muntu clique. That's why the same Jews here, when you see the events happening in Arua, say, okay, who do we ally with after the Bujiri election? Why is Mwiru changing position? Remember, we were told a man only changes position in bed, if you remember that quotation. Yeah. Why is he changing?
The man was at the press conference while introducing Bruce.
Why is he changing bed? So
No, I just want to give you information.
Yes.
When I interviewed Paul Mwiru in the run to the Bujiri elections, this is what he said. Joseph, I am a member of the Forum for Democratic Change. I have a party. I am under obligation to support my party candidate. And therefore, my candidate is Eunice Namaten.
Under obligation.
Yesterday,
Very good.
I saw my brother Paul Mwiru speak the opposite. But he's not alone. He's not alone. I just want to give just if you can see 10 seconds. The Honorable Ibrahim Kasozi of Machindye
East.
came to Parliament against the wishes of Dr. Kizza Besigye. Dr. Kizza Besigye did not support Ibrahim Kasozi.
Correct.
Regan Okumu, who is the vice president of the FDC in northern Uganda, was edged out by the Nandala clique at Naja. They gave the flag to Achire Christopher, who was member of parliament for Gulu municipality, to cross to Aswa County, and Regan had to marshal it out as an independent. So the question of FDC leaders abandoning party candidates is just not peculiar to General Muntu. They are all guilty, except Muntu is made to look more guilty.
And it's deliberate.
It is a case of the devil and the evil spirit that I always talk about.
So I think it's a bit for that extra, information and explanation. For me, ultimately, and to the viewers, they need not to just look, and this is the message I also ask my brother, Simon Kagwanjala, as they are busy in those corridors debating with those political honchos in opposition, you should inform them that the society, the opponent they are addressing is becoming smarter than they think. Because you are their friend. So finally for me, for FDC, finally there's another problem I see in FDC. I think there's what they call Achilles' heels.
As you wrap it up.
Yes, I think FDC has suffered a lot from internal democratization. A lot. In aspiration to appear to be democratic, they've again over-democratized the problem. And this is it. They had elections in 2006, 2008, 2010, 2012, 2015, and 2017. That creates centers. And finally, they need to deal with certain people in the party.
Squarely.
For example.
Sabit loves to add squarely, and I believe in that. They need to deal in the Montu's side. These are problems of FDC. They need to deal with Katuntu. He's a personal friend. I consult him on things, but this is it for the good of the party and maybe democratization and politics of this country. They need to deal with Abdu Katuntu. Squarely. They need to deal with Anita Among. Squarely. They need to deal with Nabila Nagai.
Squarely.
Such that they are not on the face, they should be known to be somewhere. And the power, Patrick Amriat.
He should power.
Yes, that is a good pun. That's a good pun. Amriat, you should power and deal precisely. Nandala Mafabi calls me my servant. He's a good friend. But in politics, it's not just about the law.
So who should he deal with?
Power should deal with radicals that think everything should be radicalized. Nandala Mafabi, Ingrid Turinawi, and Salam Musumba. For them in meetings, if you have eavesdropped, for them in the meetings, they just abuse, they just give orders. It's not a consensus, and he needs to deal with that in the party.
Thank you very much. Now, Simon Kagwanjala, you have to speak to the political honchos. I got that one from Kawesa. This was political honchos. But let me bring in Dismas. There's this the new frame and phenomenon of the people power, you know, sort of getting away from the political party politics. And we see the people power phenomenon headed by Chagulanyi.
They say it's a new coalition.
And it's a new coalition. You're seeing members, strong members from the Front for Democratic Change, the Democratic Party, the JEMA, all moving towards this direction. And it's getting more support. It's building up. The opposition itself is seemingly scared about the new phenomenon of the people power. What does that mean, and how will it likely play out in the Arua municipality by-election?
I think actually, I think it's going to take a center stage, and it has already done so. If you look at the Chagulanyi factor, if we call it that, the Chagulanyi factor being the person who has engineered that you can actually get away from the mainstream opposition FDC and the ruling party NRM, and you can still be able to garner quite a lot of support around yourself. And if Chagulanyi can be able to do it and continues, and other people learn from him and be able to say that, and it brings in the question of what Dalton has been saying. We have not found that the democratization process of FDC has endeared everybody. It hasn't endeared everybody that to the extent that we say it is the most perfect political party that we should be supporting. those ones who don't believe in NRM, there are the others who don't believe in NRM. Also, they don't believe in what if the main opposition party is doing. And more or less, if you see what happened in Bugiri and what is happening in Arua, it tells you that there are groups of people in this country who are lingering between what should we do? Should we continue supporting the mainstream political parties, or we need a new dispensation? And the new dispensation is represented by individuals like Chaguranyi. So to that extent, I think going in the future, actually, it's possibly going to be the most difficult thing. I heard that Museveni said by 2021 we will not be having an opposition. I think the only opposition we might be having in 2021 will be that opposition.
The people.
The people's opposition.
The people power.
Yeah.
All right, we just have time is fast spent, but I'll give the last 3 minutes to Simon Kagwanjala to conclude this discussion.
People power. Which people? I actually find it wild. It should not define the politics of this country. We once had the problem of individual merit. Just when we thought we were getting over it.
Was it a problem?
Yes, it was. It was. Someone should have a foundation. Someone should have an identity. That's always been my argument.
But that's their identity.
You belong somewhere. Now, people power seems to be giving Museveni some bit of relief in this case, as the opposition is being decimated steadily. People are rising because people power is easy to crush. You remember we had the Hajalagide phenomena. And how did it go? Where did it end? I think we need to redirect people power. People power is good in bolstering the opposition in a certain sense, in a certain direction. People power should be accompanied by institutions. Certain institutions should propel people power. But if people power is going to operate independently outside the realms of parties, then it's going to be very dangerous, because the people we tend to think are stars could be easily compromised. Or the people we tend to think are spearheading a certain project could end up misleading us.
But Njala,
That's my worry.
you're a fine example of people power.
Exactly.
You abandoned DP. And
No, I never
Yeah.
abandoned DP. No,
DP as a candidate, you're a
no,
candidate.
listen.
Were you a flag bearer?
Were you a flag bearer?
Were you a
in
flag
Busia?
bearer?
No, I wasn't.
Why did you contest?
I
Why
wasn't.
did you
Why did you
contest?
contest?
Listen.
Which
You
framework
disregarded
did
that
you
institution.
No, listen.
You disregarded an institution.
Listen.
No matter the processes, you
Okay.
must respect
Institution you believe
the
in.
You know
protocol.
that ignorance is a disease?
No,
No.
you must respect.
You are a member of the Democratic Party.
Yes,
Were you
you
the
must.
flag
Okay.
bearer?
Thank you for being
So you
part of
cannot
the
preach.
media
Let's get out of the market
today.
and get to the media
And
round
of
table.
course,
Can
you
I talk
cannot
to you?
preach.
Can I talk to you?
All right, guys.
You're a fine
Thank you
example of
once again
people
for being
power.
part of the